Why Christmas? Well, because God wanted to provide for us an example to follow. God wanted to provide for us an example. The earthly life of Jesus is a pattern for us to live our lives by. Think about that for a moment. I want to give you 2 verses. You can turn to them if you like, or if not, they'll appear on the screen. 1 Peter 2 and verse 21. For even hereunto were ye called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us what? What does this say? He left us an example that ye should follow His steps. Christ left us an example, a pattern for us to follow in. We are to live like Christ would want us to live. Our attitude is to be Christ-like. Our actions are to be Christ-like. Our thoughts are to be Christ-like. Listen to 1 John 2 and verse 6. He that saith he abideth in Him ought himself also so to walk, even as He walked. Now, walk there is not talking about a physical, literal walk, but the way He lived His life. That's the analogy there. And he says, if you're going to say that you abide in Him, if you're going to say that you're a Christian, that you are a child of God, then you ought to be following the pattern, the example of the Lord Jesus Christ. You see, without the incarnation, we would not have that kind of example. Jesus Christ is the ultimate example of a godly life. Never once did He ever commit sin. If you say, well, that's impossible, He had to commit some sort of sin, well, then if you believe that, then He ceases to be God. And if He ceases to be God, then His death upon the cross is really to no avail. You see, never once did He commit a sin. There never was a man like Him, and there will never ever be another man like Him. If you follow after man, eventually you're going to find out that that person is just like you. You say, what do you mean by that? I mean that that person is a sinner who fails every week and every month makes mistakes. I'm one of those people. And so are you. But not so with Jesus. Jesus was the perfect God-man. And that's why we need to get our eyes off of man and our eyes onto Jesus, who is the perfect example of a godly life. There are many Christians today that are not going to church because they had their eyes on man instead of on Jesus. Do any of you know people like that? I do. I know people that are no longer going to church at all because they had a bad experience at a church. Somebody disappointed them at that church. Somebody that they counted on, somebody that they looked up to, ended up disappointing them. Listen to me carefully. Pastors will fail, deacons will fail, teachers will fail, parents will fail, even quote-unquote good friends may fail you, but Jesus will never fail. He'll never fail. The incarnation of Christ gives us the perfect example to follow. We are to not follow after man, but we are to follow after the perfect God-man, Jesus Christ. Think about that. If we had not had the birth of Jesus, you and I would not have that example to follow. We would just be looking at everybody else around us, and everybody else is imperfect. They are sinners just like you and me.